Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We continue the series of important conversations simply called Confronting Racism, Incredibly Complex. We are honored to be joined by Shayla George, who is 2020 graduate of Montclair High School, 2019 to 2020 president of the Black Student Union. A lot of titles here. She's doing a lot of work. 2019-20 vice president of Montclair section of the NAACP Youth Council, and also one of the organizers of Montclair, New Jersey Student Blackout Juneteenth March, as well as the Unity Walk. First of all, welcome, Shayla.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Shayla, who's that young man I also see on the screen right now? Who's that guy? You can introduce him.
Well, that's Nick. He's another organizer for the Unity Walk that we had on June 7th, and I would say a rising senior activist at Montclair High School.
Yeah, and to fully disclose, he's my son, our son. Jen, I'm sorry, he's our son. And he's also the audio expert here in our home when we're taping remotely. Shayla, let me ask you this. You and Nick and a group of other students, active, impactful, organizing, making a difference. I was there for that protest rally here in Montclair. That's a piece of a much larger effort that you're involved in. We call this confronting racism, this conversation. What does confronting racism mean to you, particularly as a young leader making a huge difference?
To me, especially being in Montclair, it means having the conversations that a lot of people are not ready to have and a lot of people aren't comfortable having. We have this notion that in order to correctly deal with racism, everyone has to be comfortable, and that's just not the case, because why would you actually be comfortable when reading books like To Kill a Mockingbird? I was uncomfortable, and I experience racism every day. You have to be uncomfortable to correctly confront racism.
So before I go to Nick, I'm curious about this. Do you think that being uncomfortable is a requirement? If someone says, well, it's just too uncomfortable to talk about race relations, racism, it's just too uncomfortable, let's just avoid it, you say?
Avoiding it clearly has not gotten us anywhere in the past. It's not getting us anywhere today. And I think that especially comes into play when people say things like, I don't see color, or there's only one race, the human race, because then you're completely neglecting the problem within itself.
Well said. Hey, Nick, let me ask you this. We've had a lot of offline conversations, otherwise known as dinner conversations. And the term Black Lives Matter, and again, pre-George Floyd, it meant one thing to certain people. It's meant the same thing to a whole range of people before and after. But Black Lives Matter, to some, they say, come on, all lives matter. But others who really understand say, it's not Black Lives Matter more. What does Black Lives Matter mean to you as someone who is obviously white and, dare I say, full disclosure, quite privileged? I don't mean that as a negative, but you are.
Well, I mean, it's the truth. And, you know, as a white kid in a suburb like Montclair, the term Black Lives Matter may not seem like something that can relate to me. And it's like, well, it's not really my problem, you know, and, you know, being at certain places in my life, I hear a lot of people say, well, all lives matter, or the all-time favorite, Blue Lives Matter, which is quite ironic because, you know, last time I checked, being black is not a choice. Being a police officer is. So when I hear things like that, I hear things like all lives matter, which on surface level aren't negative. You know, if Black Lives Matter weren't such an important and impactful movement in the world currently, something like all lives matter makes sense. But the problem with that statement is that Black lives or all lives matter can't be true until Black lives do. And you'll hear a lot of people say that, and I think that's paramount in this conversation, is that an entire group in our society, multiple groups in our society, are being systemically oppressed. And it is our opportunity to bring that to the forefront. It is our responsibility, not opportunity. And if we don't do that, and we keep saying all lives matter, it completely disregards the situation.
Shayla, let me follow up with you. How important was it, not only for that rally, but also for the Juneteenth March that you were a key organizer for, the New Jersey Student Blackout Juneteenth March? Why is it so important that not only people who are black and brown, but also that white young leaders, just white folks are involved? Why is it so important if we're going to make any real progress?
It's not just a fight for people of color. This is everybody's fight. And for everybody to truly live the American dream,
Right.
systems like racism, classism, they need to be abolished, eradicated, deconstructed altogether.
When you saw the George Floyd video,
Mhm.
your visceral personal reaction is?
I'm going to be honest, I still to this day have not watched the video. I've seen the transcripts of his last words, and that reaction in itself brings me to tears whenever I read it. It's inhumane.
Why have you
It's
chosen not to see it?
I feel that we normalize Black trauma, Black death in today's society. And the fact that that video was pushed around for weeks and it's still being pushed around and everyone's like, yeah, share this, see this, that's not normal. Watching people die, watching someone have their knee on someone's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, that's not normal and it shouldn't be normalized. So I feel like I shouldn't have to make myself watch it just because it's being pushed around.
Curious, Nick, be as concise and clear as possible. Why are you hopeful? And then I'm going to ask Shayla the same question. Confronting racism is one thing. Making real progress is another. Why are you hopeful that this is a time and younger people, are part of the solution to make real progress as it relates to dealing and improving the situation dramatically around race in this country?
Yeah, I mean, the fortunate reality of all this is that you can't ignore it. No matter how hard you try, every person, every young person across America in today's social media age is going to be impacted somehow and is going to see the current social climate in our country. It's unavoidable. So that
Why are you hopeful?
I'm hopeful because if enough people are circulating certain arguments and certain histories of of Black people in this country and getting people to a better understanding, and on top of that, organizing the Unity Walk in Montclair and seeing thousands and thousands of people of all different colors. It wasn't white kids on behalf of Black kids, and it wasn't Black kids fighting for their rights, fighting for their lives,
There's a
essentially.
lot of us.
Yeah, I mean, it was people from not just Montclair, but towns all over.
It's extraordinary.
And I think that's essential, like Shayla said, to this movement is that, if people want to help. And I think that's important for people to understand that if white people the white system in this country is oppressing Black people. And it should never be on Black people to fix that problem. It's on people like myself and you who live in the same house to somehow make a difference. However little it helps. And seeing people across this town and this nation doing what they can is really hopeful.
Shayla, let me ask you to get the final word. Why are you, I don't even know if you're hopeful, but I'm going to ask, A, are you? And B, if you are, why?
Walking in May 25th, the day that George Floyd was murdered, I was not hopeful. I was not hopeful for that entire week after. And even planning the Unity Walk, I wasn't hopeful. But in these following weeks, when we're a month in and seeing the amount of change, symbolic and actual systemic policy-wise change that is happening because of the protests and because of Gen Z's unrest, one, I think we are an amazing generation because we saw that 8 minutes and 46 seconds when we immediately took to the streets. I think this is the beginning of real change, but at the same time, I think it's important to not be naive because you see things like white actors saying that they're no longer going to voice Black characters, and people think that's change. That's not change. That's not what we're asking for. We want real systemic change, not symbols.
We have a long way to go, but while I'm proud of our son, Nick, Shayla, you and other students, other young people, and by the way, we wish you all the best in your college career. You're making a huge difference. And the biggest reason I am optimistic is because of people like you. And so I want to thank you for joining us, Nick. Thank you. And I'm Steve Adubato. See you next time.